Okay, you're welcome along. We've got a busy football show this evening. I'm very happy to say we have a name familiar to lots of you, I suspect, certainly Manchester United fans of a certain vintage. We have Ben Thornley with us. He has written a book about his story, which is what we're going to discuss now. It's called Tackled, the class of 92 star who never got to graduate. Ben Thornley, very nice to have you on the show. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Despite all this, this surrounding us at the moment in the world, I'm not doing too bad, as you can see. We've got the weather, so I'm quite happy to be outside. But obviously, would love for all this to be over and get the football back.
Yeah, incredibly strange times. I'm seeing blue skies behind you there. I thought it only rained in Manchester. No.
I'm actually not in Manchester. I'm in Essex, but I believe that the whole of the UK is bathed in sunshine at the moment. So even Manchester's getting sun, I believe.
Wow, strange times. So I was a United fan growing up. You know, it's one of those things. As the older I've got, the more I work, the less kind of into it I am from a fan point of view, obviously. But as a youngster growing up, I was absolutely au fait with your name, with all the class of '92. Reading everything I could get. So your story, very familiar to me. David Heitner in The Guardian wrote about your book and interviewed you, and he opened with this amazing scene. And it's early to mid-90s in Manchester, and there's a gathering. Matt Busby is there. Nobby Stiles is there. He's the B-team coach at that stage. And somebody asks Nobby Stiles, you know, typical kind of question, who's the next big prospect? Who's coming through as the one to watch? And he said, Ben Thornley. And somebody said, not Ryan Giggs. And his response was that Ben Thornley was the closest to George Best that he had seen in all his time at the club. That's a hell of a statement.
It certainly is. And I only, believe it or not, I only learned about what Nobby had said while I was in the process of writing this book. That only came to light at that time. And yes, it is a hell of an accolade to have been bestowed on me at that time. I mean, it turned out to be a long way from the truth, believe you me. But I think that Nobby had sort of, at the time we had Nobby Stiles and we had Eric Harrison, and the way the structure was then at the football club, you had a B team, an A team, a reserve team, and obviously then the first team. And when you first start as youngsters, you pretty much in the B team, although when they realised what sort of a team they had with the class of '92, that quickly changed. Yeah. And I did play actually over in Northern Ireland in the much fabled Milk Cup. And you know, a lot of people remember the class of '92 team for the team that won the FA Youth Cup. But at the start of that season, after we'd done our pre-season in July of '91, we headed to Northern Ireland to play in this Milk Cup, and duly won it. And I think one of the goals that I'd scored in that particular tournament was somewhat reminiscent of the goals that people used to see George Best score all the time, where he made tackles, he was quick, he's an absolutely unbelievable feat. And I think that maybe that had probably stuck in Nobby's mind when he did come out with that very, very sweeping statement. I'll take it, don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of people would question who people would be to make such a statement. But this is, the great Nobby Stiles who played for England in the '66 World Cup, who played for Manchester United for many, many years in such a successful side with Bobby Charlton, George Best himself, obviously. So, yeah, as much as that never came anywhere close to being true, it was very nice to that somebody of his stature in the game linked me to one of the all-time greats.
It sure is. And not least because of who was in that class of '92 with you. I mean, he wasn't like talking about a star player surrounded by not such great players. We know what the class of '92 went on to do. And so even in that company, you were impressing and sticking out. So it's a massive compliment from somebody like Nobby Stiles. Given the talent that was there around the time of the class of '92, were you hot property? Did Man United chase hard? Were you lucky to scrape in initially? What kind of process was it in terms of getting involved with the club?
Well, I think that one of the stories that I told in my book and that people probably wouldn't have been aware of, I was at Manchester City. Ryan Giggs was there a little bit before me, but I was actually training with Manchester City's academy on a Thursday night. And then one Friday when I was about 14 years of age, I think it was, I came home from school and I had a friend of mine who we used to take it in turns, sort of finishing school, and he would stay at my house, I would go to his. And he turned to me and my dad and said, "You can't go to Jeff's house tonight because I need you to be here." Anyway, I was somewhat bemused. I wasn't really of the understanding as to why, because I wasn't really getting an explanation. Anyway, it was around 7 o'clock. We'd just finished our meal and the doorbell rang. My dad said, "Do you want to go and answer it?" And the house that we had was very open, and everybody always used to come round the back of the house to let themselves in, to announce themselves. Nobody, or very, very rarely did anybody use the front door in our house. But this was the front door, so I knew it was a bit strange. And I opened the inner door, and through the glass was Sir Alex Ferguson and Brian Kidd standing there. I just did not know what to say, what to think. Anyway, the ensuing conversation was that that they knew that I was at Manchester City, but they'd been watching me for a while, playing for my school, playing for Salford Boys, which was just based down the road from the Cliff, obviously where Manchester United used to train, and they wanted me to basically jump ship and sign for them. Doing a boyhood club, and you know, I think that really did hammer it home that they did want me to join their academy when I was 16. So it didn't take a lot of thinking about with me. I discussed it with my mum and dad. They said, "Do the right thing by Manchester City," which I duly did. But Manchester United, once they were interested, that's where I was going to go, and that's where I ended up.
Wow, it's a sign of the Ferguson work ethic, because he showed up at Ryan Giggs' house as well. And this is a man who's trying to manage Manchester United, and he's turning up at the houses of kids who won't be coming into their prime for a very long time. It's extraordinary just the hours he must have put in. It's quite quaint now. Well, I mean, Premier League managers wouldn't do that now, really. But no. Ferguson chiseled that club from the 90s on, didn't he?
Well, he definitely did. And from a long time before that, even when he first arrived, such was the task of managing Manchester United that many very good managers have found out subsequently. He wanted to make sure that he knew the real heartbeat of the club. Yes, he was there to look after the team, but I think what was so inspirational about Sir Alex Ferguson was that he knew the names of the people that were working in the laundry room, working in the cafeterias. He made sure that the groundsmen, everybody, he made sure that he knew who they were and the names, and he made them realise what vital roles they had at the football club. You know, everybody turns up on a Saturday afternoon and they watch this team. That's all they're there for. They do not realise what goes on behind the scenes at a club the size of Manchester United. Sir Alex Ferguson did, and that's what probably sets him apart from all the rest. And yes, he was absolutely the last of a dying breed, because like you quite rightly pointed out, that just wouldn't happen now.
So tell us about life amongst the class of 92, winning the FA Youth Cup, and just that period where you were bubbling away and probably weren't even aware of what everybody in the group was going to do and go on to do. Extraordinary sequence of events. But tell us about how hard you worked, your memories of that time. Eric Harrison, I'm sure, was very tough on you. Nobby Stiles tough on you. Life amongst the class of 92.
Well, first and foremost, they were a fantastic group of lads. I was not only fortunate to be joining the club with some great players, but or certainly turned out to be great players and stars of the game. But they were just great lads. And some of them I knew better than others, because, for example, David Beckham, Robbie Savage, Keith Gillespie, they were lads that I only got to see, or that we all only got to see in school holidays, for example, Easter, Christmas, the summer, when we used to all meet up and they'd stay in like digs, if you like, and we would train and then we would play matches. But the rest of us sort of, they think of myself and Gary Neville, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes. We were all local lads to Manchester, so we were all there at the School of Excellence during the week, and we all pretty much came up against each other at the weekend when we were playing for our respective Saturday and Sunday teams. So, you know, there were some names that were more unfamiliar, but as soon as we all got together, that quickly changed. We all got to know each other extremely well. both on and off the field. And when you think of some of the names that I was fortunate to come through the door with, I've already mentioned Gary, Nicky and Phil, David Beckham, Keith Gillespie, Chris Casper, who else? John O'Kane, who went on to have a good career at Everton. I mean, some of these lads didn't stay at Manchester United for long, but they still had successful careers wherever it was that they went. And under Eric Harrison, who was cut from the same cloth as Sir Alex Ferguson, you know, they both grew up at a time when football didn't have the sort of prestige that it did and what it was coming into in the 80s and the 90s with the introduction of Sky and all the broadcasting and what have you. So they were proper old school, and they knew that it was hard work that was that had to be the bread and butter, if you like, of making sure that you were going to become good footballers. That's where it all had to start. They were just so tough but so fair. And one of the things that they wanted to make sure that we did was keep our feet on the ground, because as Eric Harrison, one of his famous sayings that we all still joke about now, even though bless him he's not here anymore, is you're not good players until I tell you you are. That was something that we heard a lot of, but we respected both Sir Alex and Eric Harrison and Nobby Stiles and any of the coaches that were there. We listened, we did keep our feet on the ground, and you know, it's no coincidence that these lads went on to have astronomical careers, and that had all started under the guidance of Eric and Sir Alex.
And in keeping your feet on the ground, I'm curious as to know, at the same time, were you conscious or aware that this was a pretty special group? Like, were you dishing out hammerings to pretty much most teams that came in front of you?
Yeah, I think that that when we won the aforementioned trophy in Northern Ireland, and we haven't beaten Barcelona or Real Madrid, but we've beaten some decent sides. We've beaten Liverpool, and Manchester United against Liverpool in Northern Ireland is a big thing, and we wiped the floor with them in the quarter final. And we did come up against some really tough Scottish teams, Hearts and Motherwell. Hearts, who we actually eventually beat in the final, having had them in our group. But I think we quickly learned after that we were a group of players that were very, very capable of winning things. Now, even to win the national competition, as we did the following May, probably not many of us were thinking that was going to happen. We'd heard stories of, certainly the London clubs like Chelsea and Spurs investing a hell of a lot of money even before lads had left school to get the best boys. So we knew that we were going to be in for a bit of a fight if we were to meet any of them. I don't think we were looking too far ahead, but I think after the first sort of 2 or 3 rounds, we really fancied our chances that we could go and win this. And lo and behold, who did we get in the semi-final? Tottenham. But we comfortably disposed of them, and then had a fairly easy run through the 2 games that we won in the final against Crystal Palace. But I think that sometime during that season, all those lads must have thought to themselves, do you know what, we're not a bad group of players here, and we've got a real chance of winning this competition. And so it happened, and we should have gone on and done the double and won it the following year as well. But we were, and I've said this to players subsequently who played in the opposition for Leeds United, Noel Whelan and Kevin Sharp, people that I know very well now, that they thoroughly deserved to beat us over 2 legs. They were much stronger and were more hungry, and we let ourselves down in the final. But the run up to the one that we won in our first year was fantastic.
I want to get a quick fire memory of some of the big names in that team, if you can. We know what they became, almost what they were like at 16, 17, 18, either as people, if you knew them well, or even just as players. So, for instance, Paul Scholes, we know what he became, and we have a feel for his personality. What was he like as a late teenager?
He was a brilliant sense of humour, Scholes. Very, very dry. Would always pop up with something quite clever and quite funny without actually being the instigator of any type of banter. And one thing that people don't realise about Scholesy, especially when they're talking about the class of '92, is that Scholesy didn't actually kick any ball any of the rounds of the 1992 FA Youth Cup winning side. The transformation between Paul Scholes when he realised that, you know, he had to do things with his diet. He was looking at, and he actually used me as an example. He was actually looking at the likes of me and Nicky Butt and Gary Neville in particular that were sort of leaving him behind in terms of the way that we were developing physically. And he realised that he needed to do something about that. He described us as men and him still, you know, sort of feeling like a bit of a boy. But wow, how he changed that from the first year to the second year. The transformation was spectacular. And if the lads will tell you that maybe I, you know, along with Gary Neville and Nicky Butt were the leading lights in the first year, Scholes in the second year was the leading light by an absolute country mile. He was fantastic.
You mentioned Nicky Butt there. I have read in a few places, and I do remember at the time, he was really seen as like, this guy is going to be incredible. I mean, he was a goal scorer as well, which is not how maybe a lot of us remember him, but he seemed to be the all-round package.
Nicky, again, people have asked me who I've always enjoyed playing alongside, and bearing in mind, before I arrived at Manchester United, I was a central midfielder. You know, I was exactly like Nicky was. I was a general, playing for Salford Boys, my county, and when we played for Greater Manchester County together as a central midfield partnership, I was so fortunate to have Nicky alongside me. He had an incredible engine. He had an incredible desire. For somebody who you wouldn't look at as being like very big, either stocky or tall, he was incredibly strong. And he had an appetite for the game that at that age I'd never seen. And I knew that Nicky was going to be a top player. And I think that his time at United was only really... well, was it curtailed? I don't think it was. I mean, he played in the same team very often as Roy Keane. Scholes, he was in there as well. He played a lot of games with Roy, and Roy will tell you that he was wonderful to play with. Nicky Butt was just an all-round terrific footballer with a fantastic attitude.
Ben, what was Beckham's crossing and what were Beckham's free kicks like at that age?
Well, when we were growing up, and the manager realised that he had something sort of special with the team that he'd produced in 1991 when we arrived, he always used to say, look at Eric Cantona, you know, just watch him in the dressing room before he goes out to training. If you're lucky enough to be in the first team squad and in the dressing room before a game, either at Old Trafford or elsewhere, watch what he does, watch how focused he is. He's all alone. He's in the shower. He doesn't speak. He just motivates himself. And Sir Alex always used to say, just watch him. And not only did we watch him, but people like Bex started to do things that he did. And that included staying out longer than everybody else after the official training had actually finished. And we had, anybody who's ever been to the Cliff, they'll know that behind one of the goals was the outdoor building. So Bex used to practice free kick after free kick, knowing that he wouldn't have to run very far for the balls if he missed the target. He would rebound off the wall and come back in his general direction. And he would spend, a good, 3/4 of an hour to an hour, or until the manager banged on the window and said, you've done enough. We don't want you to, to wear yourself out. But everybody started to take note of Eric Cantona and the way that he went about his training schedule. And we all started to do it. We all stayed out afterwards doing individual things, whether it was me running at Gary Neville and me practicing my wing play and Gary practicing his defending, David taking set pieces, practicing his corners, his free kicks, Nicky Butt practicing his heading, Scholesy practicing his shooting. I mean, the list is endless of the things that we stayed out and did. And again, I'm just highlighting reasons why, when you've got a work ethic like those lads had, plus the talent, plus the guidance of Sir Alex Ferguson, the concoction is there for success.
It's still kind of incredible how it all happened, but yeah, you've explained it very well. And a last one was Giggs. Obviously he made his way very early and was maybe that little bit ahead of the rest of you in terms of getting into the first team and becoming a household name effectively. I can only imagine what a 16, 17-year-old Ryan Giggs was doing to fellow 16, 17-year-olds behind closed doors or in reserve matches. He must have been causing havoc.
Yeah, he was. He was fantastic. I mean, he was actually, obviously already at the club when we arrived. He'd had his 1 year apprenticeship and obviously since then made his debut. But we loved the fact that Sir Alex used to sort of integrate him back into the youth team when he felt it was necessary and when he felt that Ryan was going to make a difference anyway, but a real difference. And there were some games he played and some games he didn't. He obviously played both games in the final, and I think he played. I think he played one of the games in the semi-final, and they introduced him sporadically along the way. But I mean, Giggsy was a fabulous player. He's from the same place that I was. He played for Salford Boys. We both played together when we were, well, he was 10, I was 9. And then we met up again, and I stepped up again to play again above myself when Ryan was captain in the Salford Boys team. We both played for England schoolboys, so we followed a similar path up until the point where I did my injury, really. And but Giggsy, he was just an all-round terrific footballer. And take away the fact that he, towards the back end of his career, he lost his pace. He still didn't lose the influence that he could have on games by dropping into a more central role and being able to use the fantastic footballing brain that he's got to still dominate games. And he was a great lad to have in the dressing room. And what he's done as a player and what Sir Alex did at Manchester United as a manager, I don't think either will be surpassed in terms of the success.
So we're approaching the point in the story where their lives and your life go in very different directions, unfortunately. David Beckham is on the record as saying Ben Thornley would have outdone us all of the class of 92. Paul Scholes said Ben was a step above all of us. Gary Neville has described you as one of the most outstanding talents I played with. You make your debut for United at 18. We're talking kind of 94 territory here. I think you might even have been penciled in to play in the FA Cup semi-final. People will remember United won that FA Cup final against Chelsea, I think 4-0, and Cantona scoring the penalties in the rain that day. So that's the era we're kind of talking about. You play in a reserve team match against Blackburn Rovers, and Nicky Marker is the man who tackled you, the player who tackled you. He was 28 years old at that stage. The damage done to your knee was absolutely extraordinary. I know ultimately you went to court over the tackle. So I'm presuming it was the tackle itself as horrific as the damage done was?
No, probably not.
Right.
I won't go as far as to say that. I've certainly, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not playing it down. It was a bad tackle. And for me, anybody that knows their football, it was deliberate as well. It was a deliberate ploy from a seasoned professional that had had enough of an 18-year-old kid running rings around him. And that is just what, when I had to see the video again for the not just for the book, but for the court case all those years.
The court, and just because I'm conscious, I haven't seen the tackle and Nicky's not here. Did the court agree that it was deliberate? Was that put in official terms?
They couldn't. I mean, we had many expert witnesses, but without Nicky Marker actually going on record as saying, yes, I did it deliberately, that would have been extremely difficult to prove. And
he never did, I presume, Ben, did he?
No, he never did. No, I think what was proven by the experts was that the tackle was beyond the laws of the game.
Okay, well, let's go with that, because I definitely look. I'm conscious of everyone's reputation and side here. I'm sure Nicky Marker might very well deny that it was deliberate, but certainly beyond the laws of the game, we'll agree on.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And as much as back to your original question, as much as yes, I have seen some horrendous tackles on a football field that didn't do anywhere near, fortunately, that for those players on the receiving end of them, the damage that happened to me. Right. It was certainly, I think the angle with which he tackled me at and the way that my momentum was going forward, and he sort of chopped it back. That was what really tore everything in my knee apart. There was the surgeon, Jonathan Noble, who, by the way, is an absolute god to me and did a fantastic job and enabled me to still have a career in the game even after that. He said that it was akin to laying a book on its spine and just watching all the pages just fan out. That was what happened when he opened my knee up. He said there was literally nothing left, which, believe it or not, helped him because he wasn't rummaging around, moving bits out of the way. There was nothing left for him. He was basically starting to rebuild my knee from scratch.
Right. Because I was like, I think both cruciates went in.
No, it wasn't both cruciates. It was certainly my anterior cruciate. There was a medial ligament snapped as well. There was cartilage damage, and it actually tore a strip right through the bottom of my hamstring. Such was the force of the tackle, yeah.
And like these ligament injuries now probably don't sound as terrifying because, younger audiences have become a bit more used to hearing about, cruciates or medial ligaments being repaired. And maybe the Achilles is the one people dread now. But like we're talking about an era here where Gascoigne had been, severely damaged. I'm not going to say ruined as a player because that's not fair, but, definitely damaged as a player. Even doing your ligaments was a really serious thing. Roy Keane would do it at 5, 6, 7 years later. And very serious.
I actually played in that game.
The Leeds one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was on the pitch. I wasn't too far away from him. Yeah, I played in that game.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an horrendous injury for anybody to have. But I think before Paul Gascoigne did it in the semi-final of the FA Cup was it 91?
Yeah.
I'd never really heard about that sort of an injury, and then all of a sudden, Alan Shearer did it. Niall Quinn had done it, and it was becoming quite prolific, as if it were, as if it was straining your hamstring or something. Everybody's
funny.
To be doing the cruciates.
Yeah, there was a time bizarrely around Beckham in 2002 where everybody was doing their metatarsal. It seems to come in waves sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I can probably put that down to how flimsy that these companies were making their boots. I don't have any explanation as to why there seemed to be such a surge and wave of cruciate knee ligament injuries, and yeah, mine was very, very soon after Shearer and Gascoigne and Quinn had done theirs in 94.
So how long are you out for? Like, are you told you may not come back? Is it that kind of a deal?
Yes. Yeah, that was one of the things that Jonathan Noble, the surgeon, was extremely worried about, was that he actually said that there was only, I think he said 2 or maybe even 3, or I actually put mine in the top 3 worst knee injuries that he's ever seen. And bearing in mind that he was the president of the UK knee surgeons for 25 years, then that was not an accolade that I really wanted bestowing on me, that my knee as a professional footballer was shot to pieces. But like I said, he did a fantastic job, and he did plant the seed in my mind that maybe I wouldn't, but that just made me more determined. And I think that's why if you were ever to speak to him, and he does go on record as saying that as much as Ben praises me for the job I did, he said I have to give him equal amount of praise because it was an horrendous knee injury, and to do the work that was necessary to be able to get the strength back in it to play professional football again, then he pats me on the back as much as I do him.
So ultimately you stay at United until 1998. As you said, you're at that game where Keane does his own cruciate. How were you as a player? Where were you in comparison to what you might have been, what you should have been? How did you feel?
I just felt as though that little half-yard burst wasn't there anymore. Obviously my knee had been weakened, and as much as I did everything I possibly could to strengthen it, my body shape had changed, and I just didn't feel, although I wasn't slow, but I just didn't feel as explosive as I did, before the injury had happened. And I think when you are talking about elite Premier League, that half yard means a hell of a lot.
It's everything,
because you are talking very, very, very fine margins to compete at that sort of a level. And I had to be honest with myself. And if the truth be known, after I went on loan to Huddersfield in 1996, when Brian Horton was the manager, the ex-Manchester City boss, who I really got on with extremely well, and he wanted to buy me at the end of that season. I had a 6-month loan spell there, which got me recognition for the England under-21s in the Toulon tournament that summer. And that, probably around that point was when I just thought to myself, do you know what? I could do this. I might not get back up to elite Premier League status, but there's a real case for me to still earn myself a decent living after the 6 months I've just had, and now I've got recognition for my national team. But Sir Alex wanted me to stay, and at that point I'd let my sort of heart rule my head, if you like, I should have been slightly more insistent, but trust me, when you've got Sir Alex across the desk from you, and he wants you to do one thing and you want to do another, there's only one winner. But in 1998, I went to him and I had exactly the same conversation. And on this occasion, he turned around and he said, I completely agree. He said, I want you to do well. He still says that to me now. I want you to do well. I like to see you doing well. And any help that you ever need, all you have to do is come and knock on my door or pick up a telephone or whatever, and I'll do whatever I can. But he wishes me all the best. If you've got the book in front of you there is a copy of the letter that Sir Alex sent me after I'd left the club, which is one of my prized possessions. Somebody that said I never gave him any sleepless nights. He's sorry that it didn't work out, and he wants to wish me well on my way, and he did that, and he's been true to his word. Anytime I've ever called on him for any sort of help, and it's been few and far between, but when I have, his door's always been open, and he's always been magnificent the way he always was.
Right. I mean, you went on, you did, like, very few people get to play professional football, so I don't want to downplay it. Like, you're at Aberdeen, you're Blackpool, and different clubs. Psychologically, how are you? Because you're that close. I mean, you really are that close, and this is just one tackle, and for a gazillion different reasons, didn't need to happen and could have been avoided. If a tiny, a butterfly flapped his wings at the other side of the world, it mightn't have happened, So psychologically, you're having to live through a period where the fellow class of 92 graduates are having an extraordinary life and extraordinary experiences. And I'm not suggesting you didn't wish them well in the world at all, but it could have been you too. So how did you handle that? I mean, psychologically, I just can't believe that was in any way easy.
No, at the time, no. I mean, it's obviously a lot better now, but people do like to ask me this question because of the situation that I was in prior to the injury, and because of how successful the players that I played with then went on to be, right. Either with Manchester United or elsewhere. And don't get me wrong, it was tough. The time that I had to spend in the gym at the Cliff, which anybody that's ever been in there, it can be a bit of a soulless place when you're on your own, especially when you're doing your work through the summer and the weather is like it is now. Yeah. All the lads are trotting out to go and start the pre-season training, and you know that you've still got 5 or 6 months of real hard slog in front of you to be able to go and join them. And some bits of it were hard, but I always hark back to the fact that what I said to you at the beginning, they were great lads. I found some extremely good friends around that time that always kept me pepped up. They always made sure that they came in to see how I was, and that goes for some of the first team players at the time as well. I had friends outside of the club that could take my mind off it, and obviously I had my family who, there were 3 of us, 3 kids in our family, and my mum and dad always made sure that they shared their time equally. Not just coming to see me because I was playing professional football. My brother was a semi-pro. My sister played a lot of netball at the time. So they wanted to make sure that all their kids had an equal amount of their time and their support. So I had it from all angles, and then you cap it off with Sir Alex Ferguson that was desperately sorry what had happened to me. I was at the right club, with the right medical advice, with the right help. Dave Fever, the physiotherapist who'd just come in from Wigan Rugby League, had quite an extensive background in dealing with cruciate knee rehabilitation. So that was a huge help at just the right time. But psychologically, I would have, I'd have good days and bad days like everybody. But Sir Alex sort of recognised that from the start, that was what would happen. I was 18 years of age. How do you deal with something that's going to destroy your career so young? Yes. And he was very, very mindful of that. And he said, "Listen,
Ben, what about at 28? I'm more thinking, when it's over and you've gone. Like, do you?"
Sorry. I thought you were drawing the comparison at the time when with the other lads were starting to take off.
No, I guess it's more when they're like multi-millionaires, World Cup.
Listen,
Premier Leagues, and you're not. How are you in your late 20s or 30?
Oh, that's a much easier answer. The answer to that was that despite what happened to me, they were always going to be fantastic players. You know, I went to the semi-final when Giggsy scored that wonderful goal against Arsenal. I was there a couple of weeks later in the new camp and was at the after party. These were my friends that I was desperate for them to do so well. And as sorry as they were for me that it didn't happen for me, I was elated for them that all the hard work that they put in paid off, especially on that fabulous night in 1999, winning the treble and just conquering the world, if you like. And they were always going to do that because of the players and the people that they were. So that is a much easier answer.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm probably not putting this clearly. Were you then okay? Because I read, and I didn't, that was kind of alluding to it, that kind of 05, 06, you seemed to hit rock bottom according to that Guardian I was reading. So
yeah, after pretty much all of us were coming to the end. I mean, I was still playing semi-pro at that time, but yeah, I mean, I'd had a season where, or a year, if you like, where things had gone wrong for me. Financially, things had gone wrong for me emotionally, relationships breaking up, etc. And I just sort of got myself into a downward spiral where I was going out too much, I was drinking too much. I was just doing everything wrong. And then it was just one of my friends that turned around and said, "Listen, you know, if you don't sort of dig yourself out of this, then you know we're sort of worried that you've got to kill yourself." And that was how one of my friends described it to me, and how he saw it. And that was a wake-up call that I needed, because I realised that I wasn't only letting myself down. All the people that had stuck by me and that had helped me through my difficult times when I was coming back from the injury, I was letting them down. I was letting my family down, and it just wasn't going to do me any good. And I'd not been one for wallowing in self-pity all the time that I was playing professional football. I had no jealousy whatsoever towards the lads who we've just been speaking about. I was always hoping that they would go on and achieve great things, but I was letting myself down massively, and I needed to get back to a place where emotionally and mentally I was a happier person again, because I wasn't only making myself miserable, I was making others that I cared about miserable around me. And after 2006, I vowed that my sort of annus horribilis was the last one that I was ever going to have in 2006, and I've pretty much, well, I'll say pretty much, I've stuck by that. You know, right. I've been in a relationship for the last 11 years. I've got a wonderful son who's actually just sitting across from me, listening to all this going on. And yeah, you know, both my parents are still here. I've got great friends, and I've still got contact with the lads that we've been speaking about for this last half hour. I'm in a happy place, and obviously the only thing that's spoiling that at the moment is what's spoiling it for everybody else, and not being able to get on with the job that I love.
Well, that's good. That's all great to hear. So it hasn't, and we're talking, God, how many years is it now? 94. Ooh, doing the quick maths. What are we?
It was 26 years at the beginning of this month.
Wow. So you've managed to get to a point 26 years on where, beyond where you're doing interviews around football, where you're talking to people like me, where it's not like this thing that hangs over you. You're not living in the past. You're not why didn't I wish I'd missed that game that night in that reserve match. You're not reliving it. It sounds like you parked it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that doing the book was a very cathartic exercise, and I think that helped me do that. It helped me exercise, you know, any remaining demons that may have been there. And no, I don't think about it at all. It could have been very different. I appreciate that, but if I were to shut myself off and think about how different it would be, or it could have been, I would have become a very bitter person, and not somebody that I would want to be around. And I've always been, well, I'm saying popular. I don't know how popular I've ever been, but I've always been somebody that people have commented on, that I'm affable and I'll speak, and I'm a smiley person. And that's the way I'd like people to perceive me, and obviously to know me. I don't want people thinking that I'm this twisted, bitter footballer that thinks about, you know, what he could have had. There's no point. I'm absolutely pleased with my lot at the moment. I'm not got any complaints whatsoever. I'm enjoying my life, and whatever happened to me, it's a hazard of the trade. You just got to find a way to deal with it. And yes, it did take me fully quite a long time, but until you're actually in that situation, you probably don't realise how much it does affect you.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt whatsoever. Well, listen, again, Ben, the book is Tackled, the class of 92 star who never got to graduate. Thanks so much for giving us the time. Great to get your memories of even just being part of that phenomenal team. And then...
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you on. So listen, we wish you well, and thanks again.
All the best. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been good so far. Like in terms of the first few weeks has been tough. You're looking at it, you're coming out of your much routine, whereas now I'm getting into a routine again. I'm going to bed early. I'm doing my fitness work and I'm doing my ball work and my gym work as well. So at the moment it's going well. It's first few weeks was tough, but now that we do have we're meant to be back in, I think, end of May, sort of as a team. So if that does go ahead, it will be. It's not too long now, so possibly just over a month.
I think League of Ireland players and League of Ireland clubs are very hopeful that the green light will be given to go back. I know there was the news this week about crowds of more than 5,000 wouldn't be given a licence to play until at least September, but there's still that possibility that very few League of Ireland games are going to go over that 5,000 territory, and hopefully, if it could be policed, we can maybe get the league back hopefully in June as it was planned originally.
Yeah, look, that would be massive. If it does come back to that, I think that is the best case scenario for everyone, as in clubs and players. That way you'll get the clubs may be able to stream some games and have maybe 4,000 or 5,000 fans in. That's talking about a big revenue, and I'm sure with no other sport on, if you're streaming games and you have 4,000 in, the clubs will quickly start to make a profit. So as well, then you have the players who are going to not only have their job's still there, but the mental side of it as well, to be able to even watch sport as well, with whether it's with your family, to have something to watch, or as a player going back and being able to go out and get amongst the team again and get back playing, it would be massive.
Yeah, because I suppose that's the hard part at the moment. It's just not really knowing what's going to happen. At the moment, you guys are kind of training away, and I'm sure at Shells you're probably doing, is it Zoom you're using at the moment to try and just keep things ticking over?
Yeah, so we're doing Zoom gym classes, so we've got upper body and lower body sections, so we do that twice a week. And while it's not ideal, you're doing as much as you can in these tough times. It's challenging at times, but look, as I said, we are doing as much as we can to just keep the team together, so you still have a bit of crack with the lads while you're doing it.
Looking at some of the 5K times that are going up on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at the moment, it's going to probably be the fittest league we've ever seen if these times are genuine.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think some of them are very questionable. I've seen Liam Carney at Cork, a coach who done it in 18 minutes, and I really thought that was questionable. So, yeah, look, it's as you said, players are going out and they're doing their work, and the thing is, players may come back very, very fit from this, and whether that's a good thing now or a bad thing, who knows? It could be players may be overworking themselves if it goes on for too long. If it doesn't, players will come back very fit, because I know each club has sort of programs in place now, and players have just come back off the back of a pre-season, and then you're going back into 4 games and then doing another pre-season slot again. So you're going to have lads who maybe a little bit skinnier than what they should be, but our fitness will be through the roof, you'd imagine.
You know your own body. Obviously, 2.5 years ago, you get the diagnosis around the arthritis, and you have to be very careful about your back particularly. Have you had to modify your training regime over the last couple of years since then?
Yeah, so even say what I find works for me is if I do more straight line running, or say when I'm doing my endurance that way, if I just stick to straight line running rather than, even today I went out and I was doing a little bit shorter, sharper in terms of twisting and turning, and then the back sort of I can feel it then and that. And if I do too much of that, it will start to seize up and give me a bit of problem. In terms of when it's football, as long as I stick to what I know works, then when I'm out on the pitch, that's fine, because then you can have 3-4 days to recover. The problem is, what I didn't know at first in my body was that if I'm twisting and turning constantly in trainings and I'm overdoing it and pushing myself too far, it has a knock-on effect that can go on for weeks to months. At the start of last season for Cork, I actually hurt my back in pre-season, and silly enough, I started trying to push through it. In the first couple of games, I was playing through it, and to be honest, I wasn't the same player for the rest of the year. I'd say it was around maybe August, September time when I was starting to feel right again, and now thankfully this pre-season I've had no problems with it, touch wood, and hopefully the season comes back so I can start to show that on the pitch.
I suppose it is kind of a player's instinct to try and play through pain, because I'd imagine naturally you've played through niggles throughout your career, or maybe you're not 100% fit, you just kind of grin and bear it and go through a game, and you don't really think maybe about the damage you can do further down the line.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think every footballer's like that. If there's players who play through like slight hamstring problems with my back, I was just thinking, you know what, I'm not able to move as well. I actually think the quote I gave John Caulfield was at the time, I don't know if I can play. I feel like having an ironing board stuck to me back when I was playing because I was so rigid. So he's just saying, look, if you can get through it, great. If you can't, let me know and I'll obviously pull you. So me being the footballer that I am said, yeah, of course, look, I'll get through it. I'll do my best that I can. But then obviously what that does then, it has a knock-on effect. So you're then not playing as well, and then that will seep away at your confidence, and then that just has a knock-on effect for not only on your body but also the mental side as well. If you're not playing as well as you want to be or you should be, it has a bit of a knock as well.
It must have been, I'd imagine, quite scary being diagnosed kind of in your late 20s, because usually we kind of assume arthritis is kind of affecting people who are a little bit older. How scary was it when you got that diagnosis at the time?
To be honest, I was probably... I didn't overthink it at the time. I actually thought, you're wrong. There's no way I can have arthritis. I said to the physio at the time, he was saying it to me, look, you should go get tested. I think you have arthritis. I was saying, I don't. I was saying, I don't even know if I should go for these tests. I'm wasting their time. They have other patients that they should be seeing. And then obviously it came back that I did. And at first I was like, right, it's not going to be too big of a change, take an injection every now and again. But then the more it goes on, you notice that the effects that have on your body. And I actually only changed medication there recently, and thankfully now my body's starting to react really, really well to it. So my back is feeling really good, and long may that continue.
Good spot by your physio as well. I was reading he picked this up from down around your kind of legs and shin area. It wasn't a case of he looked at your back and said, yeah, that's what it is. This sounds like it was a pretty good diagnosis by him.
Yeah, in fairness, he's one of the top in Ireland. His name's James Peckett. And at the time it was the end of the 2016 season, might have been 2017, that we had just won the cup final. And I was saying, we won the cup final, my back was a little bit sore in the final, and then a few weeks after, I was texting him during the off-season saying, just so you know, my back's been quite sore for a while now. And I was thinking maybe I pulled a muscle in the game or done something like that. And then he was saying, okay, well, I'll have a look. If it's still bad in January, I'll check it out. So I came back and I had a rash on my shin. It was psoriasis at the time. I just thought it was from the shin guard in pre-season. He said, no, look, I think that's psoriasis, and with the back as well. And he was just adding up. You could see him patting up the numbers. And then he said, look, I think we should get you tested for a form of arthritis. He said, I think it could be psoriatic arthritis. He was right. And to be honest, for a physio, even if you go to a doctor, he may not be able to catch that. But for a physio to be able to get it from them signs, it was a great spot by him.
I'd imagine last year at Cork very obviously must have been very frustrating, because you've had 4 years before that where they're kind of trophy laden. You've won the league, you've won a double, you've won 3 FAI Cups, you've been up there in the top 2 during that entire period with Dundalk as well. And then I guess just to have the season that never really got going last year must have been very tough.
It was, and there was, when people ask about last season, I always bring it back to, if we were a mid-table team before that, we wouldn't have finished as low. Because what happened is, when you're so used to winning, any footballer will admit to it, if you have a defeat, it's crisis. Whether people like to admit it or not, there's going to be crisis meetings throughout the club. So every club will be, I'm sure if Dundalk or Rovers lose a game now, it's much more of an effect to them than if, say, Shells lose a game now. I wouldn't say we're accustomed to losing, but what happens is we have a different mindset. If we lose now, we go, right, let's bounce back next week. That one's gone. Whereas at Cork, it was for the next maybe 2-3 days of the week, we were all really, really down about it, and we're going, oh no. And then that just had almost a tumbleweed effect that it just kept knocking on. And then next thing you know, we were in a relegation battle, and then we really had to sort of go, right, lads, we're in real trouble here. If we keep this run of form going, we'll go down. So thankfully we didn't in the end, and we hit a bit of form at the right time.
I guess as well, probably for other teams, like in the previous years, you had excellent records, say, at Turner's Cross, and there'd be an intimidation factor about going there. When you're in a bad run of form, I'm guessing clubs go down and probably fancy playing against you.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I'm sure every team who came down before that was, geez, if we get a point here, it's a really good result. Turner's Cross, one of the toughest places to go. And what ended up happening was, even us ourselves, whether we wanted to admit it at the time, we were going into games going, will we even get a win here? Will we get a draw? And this is at home in your own ground. So, and that's what happens. As I said, the confidence starts to go, and next thing, you're in a bad place, and it's not where any team wants to be. And especially when you're coming off the back of winning cups, winning leagues, and challenging for so long. So it was, I think mentally it was a massive season for us last year, and to deal with the disappointment. And I don't think we were sort of really ready for it.
You got your move back home then after the season last year, back at Shelbourne. You know, we were there as a schoolboy 20 odd years ago, and you're back at the club again. What was the feeling like when, I presume, you got the call from Shells to make the contact about joining them?
Yeah, I was delighted. I'm actually really good friends with Kieran Kilduff since my time at Shamrock Rovers, so that's maybe 8-9 years ago, and I'd be in regular contact with him throughout, and he was speaking glowingly about the club and about how Ian Morris was, say, behind the scenes and how the training was and everything. And from just talking to him, I was just saying to him, I wonder if this would be something that he'd be interested in having me. And so I actually contacted him, which is quite unordinary in the League of Ireland. Normally you just wait for a manager to contact you. And I just said, look, I don't know if you'd be interested, but I'm really interested in what Shells are doing and what they're building on. And obviously I played with them when I was younger, and sometimes you just have almost a click or a feeling about a club, and I just said, you know, I'm going to go with my gut instinct here and go with Shells. And thankfully he was interested. It would have been an awkward conversation if I rang him and he just said, no way.
Ian was saying to me a couple of months ago, I was chatting to him out in Abbottstown at the league launch, that he was saying of your signing and a few other signings that he made during the off-season as well, that when he was on the lookout, it was about just kind of building on that first division team. He was looking to just get a little bit of experience of players who've been in and around the Premier Division. He mentioned that Kilduff was ready to make that transition straight back in as well. And he said, look, it was just important that they got a little bit of experience in. I guess that's been pretty important with the way you've hit the ground running in this season now.
Yeah, I think when you look at our team, the way the league started was, we knew that in time. So we were playing in Talca Park, and the pitch wasn't as good as we would have liked. I think everyone would have admitted that the rain had taken a big effect on it. So I think then before games we'd be coming in and we want to play a nice brand of football, and everyone, Shells, sort of, that's what we work on throughout the week, is how we can get it down and play. But we're going into these games going, right lads, today is not the day for it. Let's be hard to beat. See if we can get a goal from either a set play or a cross, or just be tough to beat because the pitch is not ideal. If they're trying to pass it, let's go and pounce on that then. And I think they had a little bit of experience that maybe Ian was talking about, where the lads obviously were so used to winning last year, but at times you just have to, maybe when you're a little bit more experienced, you go, right, today's not the day to play nice football. Let's dig in as a team. And thankfully, as you said, we started the season really well, and against Dundalk I should have scored, so it would have been nice to say we had taken points off Dundalk and Pats, and obviously we got a win down in Cork. So, and as well, we played Bows in the last game that we obviously lost, but maybe 60 minutes in that game we were pretty much in charge and we let it slip then as well.
Yeah, I suppose the importance of a good start to the league as well. Like when the fixture calendar came out, I looked at your kind of first 5 games. You're looking at Cork away, you've got Dundalk and Bows in there, and you've got a derby against Pats in the middle of it as well. It wasn't exactly the easiest way to start the season. It was probably important on those first couple of weekends to actually get points on the board and to get things ticking over, given the difficult fixtures you had to start the season.
Yeah, hopefully, look, let's hope that them fixtures count. So let's hope that the league comes back and all the hard work we did put in isn't just sort of washed aside. So it was very tough. I remember going down to the Cork game, and it was almost, I think both clubs were like sort of ready to feel each other out for the first few minutes. We didn't know if we were going to be dominant, if they were going to be dominant, and thankfully we managed to get a really late winner. I think it was the 87th, 88th minute, and it just sort of gave us the confidence then to go, right, we are hard to beat, we're good on set plays, and in the game we actually had a good few chances. So we were saying, right, while we may not have had the lion's share of possession, we created a lot of chances, and it sort of gave us the confidence then going into the next few games, going, right, we know we're a good team and we're ready for this level.
And for you personally, when the fixture list came out, you must have looking at it going, Turner's Cross, first night of the season.
Yeah, to be honest, I knew you have them feelings, and you're looking at the fixture list and you're waiting for it to come out for, I think in the League of Ireland, you're normally waiting for about a month and a half from the end of the season till then. And I was just saying, I know where it's going to be. It's going to be Turner's Cross away, first game, Cork. And it was a funny one because it was obviously, you spent so many years there, and then, if I go back, maybe if I come back in May time, you don't get a bad reception or a strong reception, but then you go back first game and it's, right, all eyes on him, let's get him.
What was it like, I suppose, you to commit 5 years to Cork? I'm guessing you moved down to the city as well, did you?
Yeah, I did. I lived there for my whole time that I was there.
How did you find it? Because I know from chatting to some lads who do move down, they kind of say it's a mad football town, and football seems to be the conversation on the street when you bump into people while you're down there as well.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. I loved my time down there. It was actually the girlfriend and the little one moved down as well with me, so we're very committed to the move. And I always say, when people ask me what it's like, I always say it's almost a nicer, sort of friendlier version of Dublin, in the way that it is still a big city, but yet when you're walking down the street, people recognise you and they'll chat away to you and they'll actually stop you and talk to you about football. Whereas in Dublin, it's sort of so busy that you may not be recognised if you're walking down Grafton Street. If you're walking down the main street in Cork, people chat away to you and they'll stop you. And a lot of times, it's even small things. I remember I got into fishing, and then some fan waited outside the ground for me to give me some flies for the fishing. So it's just little things like that where I was saying, you know what, there's some really, really nice people down there.
Have you managed to keep the fishing going since you've gone back to Dublin?
At the moment, no, but I will. I was waiting for. So there's obviously the seasons when I can and can't fish, and now is the time where I can. But unfortunately, I can't do it because of the lockdown.
I guess, look, we're all kind of like dogs that are waiting to get out of our houses now when it comes to the lockdown. In terms of football coming back, you've mentioned a couple of times, hopeful is the word you've been using about the rest of the season. Do you have any concerns that maybe the League of Ireland season mightn't get back going again?
Yeah, I think it's a huge concern, really. Like, if you look around the world, I think every ground is going to have to be pretty much behind closed doors. Even they're saying crowds below 5,000, if it doesn't go behind closed doors, or even with a small crowd, maybe a couple hundred, that's very spaced out, you have a real fear that it won't go back till maybe there's a vaccine, which could be 2021 sometime, and then who knows when a vaccine will come out for it. So there is real fear there. And then as a player who's now 29 and played for maybe 9-10 years in the league, I'm looking at it going, will this affect my decision on how long I can go? I'm sure a lot of other players are thinking that if this goes on for another year or so, you're looking at it going, right, I've not played for a year. Will I come back and be really rusty? How long will I be able to train for with my team? So these are decisions that I'm sure are going through a lot of players' head. And as I said, they're not known. That's the problem now.
You've already taken on some of the coaching badges and you've done a bit of coaching now already. So over the last year or so, I'm guessing you're already kind of half planning for your life beyond football, are you?
Yeah, I am. So obviously I've got my UEFA B and I was actually just about to start my UEFA A for this year. So whenever that comes back around, I will start that. And I've done coaching with Avondale down in Cork, and obviously I was with Portmarnock as well this year. So it was it's a side of the game that I really, really enjoy. It's, people say, like, what's it like coaching compared to playing? And you still get a buzz, but it's a completely different buzz altogether if your team's scoring or if you're losing, you're still, as long as you're really enjoying it, which I do, it's completely different. Then as well, as I mentioned a few times, I've got the job in Cocoa Coffee, who as well, I'm business development manager there, and it's a side that it sort of distracts me from football as well, which is actually a really nice distraction as well to have in even times like these.
It's one of those things, I guess, about being a League of Ireland footballer as well. There's no way you can basically rely on football being your primary income maker. You have to have something else on the side here. Yeah,
well, unless you're Kev O'Connor who wins the lotto, you do have to have something in the background really for when you retire. Because, as I said, you look at times now where football is such a tough sport to be in. You have 10 years to really make your money, and in the League of Ireland, you don't make money to retire on. You really don't. You don't make enough money you're making enough money to live year by year, but after that you need to get it, sort of have something in the background for while you're playing. And in fairness to Stephen McGuinness and the PFAI, they're always trying to drill that into the young players to start now, be ahead of the curve. And thankfully, I started to listen when I was maybe about 25, 26. If I listened when I was 18, it would have been better. But look, thankfully I was able to sort of get ahead of the curve at 25, 26, whereas there's still lads who maybe 28, 29, 30, who are only starting to go, oh no, I might only have a year or two left in the game. So it is something that you really have to think about when you're playing in the League of Ireland.
Just on the final note, in terms of Shells, I can't help but notice that the club are being very progressive at the moment. There's obviously, plans around Tolka Park, and some of the work has already been done there. It's the 125th anniversary. You're wearing that underneath the badge at the moment for hopefully touch wood when the season gets back underway again. And also, they've been very proactive in terms of getting a bit of attention and buzz, getting the podcast up and going at the moment as well. I get the feeling that this is a club who are looking to try and really build on their return back up to the top flight.
Yeah, it is. All the work that Andrew Doyle and David O'Connor are doing, fantastic. You look at the club and they just brought out a new podcast, and they had Peter Schmeichel on it, I think it was the first week, and you're going how do you lads keep coming up with this content to get us also focused on the club and all the positivity that they're bringing to the club? As you said, the new ground, now who knows how long that may be, but they are planning for the future, and it's always positivity coming out of the club that you hear. I think we're maybe one of the first clubs to say we're committed to paying our players in these tough times. And as a player, you remember that. If I was at a different club, and I don't know, you're obviously in different situations, but if the club you felt they could possibly do more for you, when you're out running in these times where you're running by yourself, you may have that in the back of your head where you go, I'll take a day off today. But I'm sure all the players are going, right, we're really committed to the club. They're going above and beyond for us. And as a player, it's just fantastic to be part of a club who's like that.